everyone, and welcome to the thorough newspaper analysis, which is presented to you by LawSikho. So let's see that what are the important articles for the date July 7th, 2020. So the first article that we'll be discussing about today is from the Hindu, which is titled as "There is no one to fill Mahalonobis' shoes." So here, a deep discussion about P.C. Mahalonobis, who was one of the greatest statistical personality, the greatest personality in India who had studied data and statistics. So we'll be discussing about him. Then the second article talks about before the next health crisis. So definitely it has to do something with the COVID-19. But then again, a beautiful correlation has been drawn by the author between the COVID-19 and the air pollution and the hazards caused due to air pollution. And then in the third article, it is about revise the law, so which actually talks about looking deeper into various legal provisions that are available, but they need some kind of changes to be acceptable and to be more relevant and to fit better in today's society. So to begin with, here is the first article wherein we'll be talking about P.C. Mahalonobis. So first of all, let's just see that why this is in news right now. So first of all, we should know, this is also important for our prelims point of view, that India observes 29th June as the National Statistics Day. And now we can simply correlate that P.C. Mahalonobis definitely has got something to do with statistics for that matter. And so it is celebrated, 29th June is celebrated as the National Statistics Day on the occasion of P.C. Mahalonobis' birth anniversary. So it was his birthday on 29th June, and that is why we celebrate it as the birth anniversary of him. Then the full name of P.C. Mahalonobis is Prasanta Chandra Mahalonobis, and he is known for being the architect of India's statistical system. So with statistics, we simply mean the collection of data. So when there is a particular exercise which aims at collecting some kind of data. Now this data could be anything, like for example, collecting the number of people living in a particular area, number of people who like one thing over the other. It could be anything. Any kind of data collection is simply statistics. So P.C. Mahalonobis was the one who was the biggest source, or we'd say he was the main architect of India's statistical system. Then let's understand that what are the historical contributions which were made by P.C. Mahalonobis on account to India's statistical system. So P.C. Mahalonobis built up a strong and trustworthy statistical heritage in India. So to say that before him, there was not much of the emphasis that was given to data collection or the importance that statistics play in the framing of policies into any nation. But it was him, it was P.C. Mahalonobis in the case of India, wherein he built a strong and also trustworthy system of statistical collection or statistical heritage in India. Then secondly, he envisaged large-scale sample surveys as statistical engineering. So what he did was, he not only emphasized on data collection, but also did a lot of data collection. So he actually looked forward to large-scale sample surveys, wherein large-scale data collection exercises took place. And how did they happen? We will just get to know in the points to come further. Then next, he established the National Sample Survey in 1950 and the Central Statistical Organization in 1951. Now, as all of us know very well, that it is the NSS, which is the National Sample Survey, and the CSO, which is the Central Statistical Organization, which these two bodies are responsible for collection of major data or making of any kinds of statistics in the country. And we know that if we want to do the policy framing, or we want to draft something, we want to make a particular policy for some specific kind of beneficiaries. So it is important for the government to have accurate idea as to who these beneficiaries are, how many are they in number, where do they reside, what are their requirements, etc. Now for that purpose, data collection is the biggest key. And these are the National Sample Survey and the CSO that ultimately have the job to collect this data in an authentic manner. Now, both of these institutions, both of these bodies were actually brought into existence by the efforts of P.C. Mahalonobis. Now, next, P.C. Mahalonobis was very much inspired by Arthashastra. So now, as we all know, that Arthashastra is one of the most famous books, and it was written by Kautilya in the Mauryan Empire. So he was very much inspired by Arthashastra. Now, how? Because Kautilya in his book had mentioned that if you want to collect some kind of authentic data, or you really want to gain or gather some statistical data, so it is very important that you assign for this purpose independent supervisory staff. So we can imagine, even in such an old age time, the view or the vision of Kautilya was to appoint separate independent staff for this purpose. Now, this was taken as an inspiration by Mahalonobis, and then he made sure that while data is being collected by the NSS, similar setup is used, and for that purpose also independent supervisory staff is appointed. Then he introduced the interpenetrating network of subsamples. So this actually formed the foundation for sampling procedures like bootstrap. So nowadays there is this method, there is this to say a platform called as bootstrap, which is a very effective one to collect the data. Now here it actually is based on the concept of interpenetrating network of subsamples, which actually was introduced by Mahalonobis. Then he led the Indian Statistical Institute procure India's first computer in 1956 and second in 1959. So if analyzed properly, we can understand here that Mahalonobis was very much, he was very affected, or to say he was quite inspired by the use of technology, and he never hesitated in making a use of technology. And this should be an inspiration for the government of India as well, and for our own selves as well, that how technology can play such an important role in bringing the data, and that too authentic data, into the hands of the authorities. That is why it can be procured from this very point that even the first computer in our country was brought by Mahalonobis, and thus technology should be sought as a friend of the government. Then let's understand that what were the major works that were done by Mahalonobis in his regime. So there was a very, to say, a very detrimental famine that took place in 1943 in Bengal. It is very famously known as simply the Bengal famine, and it was in 1943. But this was also taken as an opportunity by Mahalonobis, and it was at this time when he conducted a large-scale sample survey on the famine-ravaged or the famine-hit villages. So what actually he did was, he got his own team and he started doing the surveys in order to understand that what was the total number of people who were affected by this particular famine. Now, this data actually could help the government and the authorities to fall to the point as to what are the resources they need to put forward for the help of these famine-stricken people, or who are these people, where in the parts of Bengal do they mostly reside, and similar other data. Then the details of this particular survey were documented in the articles called as Sankhya and the Asiatic Review. So all in all, to say, the gist from this article can be taken as that data collection and authentic and trustworthy statistics can form the base of effective and efficient policy making. Because if any policy is drafted by the government or any other authority for that matter, that policy aims to provide some of the other kinds of benefits to some people, definitely. But if that policy is also based on proper and authentic data, then we can make sure that it will be not only properly and articulately drafted, but also will be able to make the benefits reach to the beneficiaries as soon as possible. So that is why the author here again tries to put emphasis that just like P.C. Mahalonobis had brought into the picture the importance of data collection and statistics, it is the need of the hour today that someone like him, and mostly it can be somebody who brings to the notice of the people that what is the importance of statistics and data collection for effective policy making. With this, we move to the next article for the day, which talks about air pollution and global warming in the times of COVID-19. So let's first understand a small background to this, as whole of the world was already suffering from various kinds of pollutions depending upon their own usages. And on the top of that were the air pollution and also in totality the global warming. Concerns were being raised in various climate change summits and various international platforms that the global warming should be mitigated, the climate change should be halted. And for that purpose, when the lockdown was announced in most of the parts of the world in the times of COVID-19, it was considered that probably because now due to the lockdown, industrialization would be halted, it was halted, no industries were working, so the emission of such greenhouse gases would be reduced definitely. The transportation was at its minimum. So it was construed that it would lead to lessening or bringing down the air pollution and the global warming in all. But the facts that have come forward now have been to the contrary. Now let's see that why are we saying so and what is the issue in news currently. Now the first thing that comes up is that despite the lockdown in many countries, there is an increasing number of deaths due to air pollution. Now this must seem very ironical, because at one side we say that the emission of greenhouse gases is less, industrialization and transportation for that matter are very less, and still the deaths due to the air pollution are increasing. Now how does that happen? Now it is evident that yes, the air pollution might have reduced for now, the global warming might have come down for now, but the concentration of the air pollutants, the concentration of these greenhouse gases was so vast already that it still has huge accumulation and thus has huge impact even today on the lives and the health of various people. Then, what is the current situation? Now we will be trying to understand the current situation of air pollution, global warming, then and the deaths caused or the severity of this air pollution and global warming, and we categorize into two heads. The first would be the global one, wherein it has been seen that China has claimed that deaths from air pollution have still exceeded, they are still more than the number of deaths from COVID-19. Now, as we know that China was the first country where this COVID-19 actually originated, and it is also one of the countries having the highest number of COVID deaths. But still, China has claimed that the deaths or the number of deaths caused due to air pollution is still greater than the deaths caused due to COVID-19. So generally, when we were conceiving COVID-19 as one of the largest pandemics that this world would have ever seen, the actual thing is that still air pollution and global warming are even larger of a pandemic as compared to COVID-19. Next, Europe has said that 11,000 air pollution related deaths have occurred since lockdown. So even after the proclamation of lockdown, 11,000 deaths have occurred in Europe, which actually is a huge number, keeping in mind the entire scenario. Then globally, to say 9 million premature deaths per year have been associated with air pollutants. Now, for that matter, we need to understand what PM 2.5 is. So actually, for the PM stands for particulate matter. Now, this is one of the kind of agents or the pollutants that is the most severe one of the most severe air pollutant that causes the greatest harm to the respiratory system or the other health systems of any person. Apart from that, there are various kinds of greenhouse gases, like we have the methane, we have carbon dioxide, etc., which also play a major role in causing the global warming globally. So this was the entire scenario of the increasing deaths or hazards due to air pollution and global warming. And if we consider it on the Indian grounds or on the national level alone, then we know that 14 out of the world's 20 most polluted cities are in India. So this is a big blemish on the national image as well, because amongst the 20 most polluted cities of the whole world, 14, even more than half, are from India. And on this list, Delhi, Ghaziabad and Noida top this list. Then the global warming in India has been increasing despite lockdown, and the emission of the carbon or the atmospheric carbon is at a record high. So it has not been seen in India that the air pollution has reduced very significantly or something, because even after or even despite the lockdown, the emission of the carbon emission is still quite high. Then India stands on the 5th number amongst the most vulnerable countries to the climate change. So if we see it in totality, out of all the countries that are at the risk of climate change or that are facing hazards or that are facing severe consequences due to the climate change, India is on the 5th rank, which definitely is a cause to be worried about. Then the locust swarms, the recent locust attack which came into the news that has caused severe loss to the agriculture, that also can find its root from the changing temperature or the increasing temperature. So what happens is that the locust, they can breed very efficiently and very quickly when the temperatures are quite high. Like for example, they're found mostly in the areas of deserts. But due to the increase in global temperature now, the areas that could be ideal for their breeding have widened. So the areas that earlier had lower temperatures and did not support the breeding of these locusts, now actually due to increased temperature and due to the heat waves, are becoming an ideal area for their breeding. And that is why global warming is not only affecting the lives of the humans directly, but also through agriculture, the entire world is being affected. And another factor which needs to be brought into our concern is that in India, out of the total GDP, or that is the gross domestic product, only 1.6% of it is spent on the health sector. So this actually works as a two-way sword. Now, how does that happen? First, we are not paying proper concern or heed on mitigating the global warming or the air pollution. So that is affecting the health of the people. Secondly, the COVID-19 is itself targeting the respiratory system, particularly of the people. And thirdly, to mitigate this health hazard, we do not even have a proper and well-functioning health system in our country. So all in all, we fall back on various grounds, and this should be mitigated as soon as possible. Now, next is that the Global Health Security Index of 2019 says that India has failed in the test of readiness. That means that we are not even ready enough to face such consequences or circumstances in the coming future. Now, let's understand that what is the link between air pollution and COVID-19, as we just discussed. So it says that a link was observed in the New York City and the northern provinces of Italy, that the areas that are high in air pollution and that have larger accumulation of pollutants, air pollutants, have seen greater cases or larger number of cases of COVID-19 infection as well. Now, an example to this can be Indian cities like Delhi and Maharashtra that have always had higher concentrations, or Indian areas or Indian states of Delhi and the Union Territory of Delhi and the state of Maharashtra, and various other cities also for that matter, that have always had a higher concentration of air pollutants and high levels of air pollution. And now, if we study keenly, these are the very areas where the impact of COVID-19 infection or the spread of COVID-19 infection is larger. So we can see that higher the air pollution in an area, higher are they at the risk of being infected by COVID-19. And here are some long-term solutions which can be taken, of course. So reforms can be made to encourage the public transport, which definitely would mitigate the emission of such gases. Then expand electric vehicles so that such gases are not at all emitted in the environment. And finally, to provide for interconnectivity between metro and buses. Now with this, we are done with the understanding of the relation between air pollution and the COVID-19 and how air pollution is being such a big hazard to the humankind and also to other kinds of flora and fauna. And now we'll be jumping towards the last article for day, which talks about overhauling of criminal laws. Now by overhauling, we simply means a deep look into the criminal laws and inspecting the relevance of the criminal laws. So firstly, we should understand that why is this in news? So the Union Ministry of Home Affairs has set up a 5-member expert committee to overhaul the existing criminal laws. Now the very thing that we are saying, that it is important to look into the very relevance of these criminal laws and the need to update them according to the requirements of today's society. The Union Ministry of Home Affairs has set up a 5-member expert committee that would do this job. Now, this should be understood that why actually are we asking for this overhaul? Why is it actually needed? So it is said that the Indian Penal Code, the Indian Evidence Act, and the Code of Criminal Procedure were all enacted in the late 19th century. So if we talk about IPC specifically, so it was enacted in 1860. So as we see, it has been more than a century now to its enactment. And we can understand that this was enacted keeping in mind the needs and the norms of the then existing society. And thus it is important that they should be looked into deeply and should be changed with time. Then the IPC is still rooted in the colonial ideas, as we already have discussed, and it does not reflect the aspirations of a constitution that gives primacy to liberty and equality. So definitely the Constitution of India, which is such a beautiful book to say, it is such a beautiful collection of provisions, so it gives a lot of primacy to liberty and equality. But on the contrary, the IPC does not do so, and that is why it is needed to bring some required reforms into it. Now another example to this can be that it took us 158 years, which is more than even a century, 1.5 century, to decriminalize homosexuality and adultery, and to say such things that were considered to be criminal in our country have been decriminalized long ago in other countries of the world, but for us, it took us more than 1.5 century to decriminalize homosexuality and adultery. Further, it is said that we do not recognize individual agency, especially women. Now, to this, an example can be taken from section 498 of the IPC, which talks about enticing, wherein the terms particularly a woman in the care of a man or any other person assigned by him, such words are used. Now, a woman being in a care of a man actually puts down the very idea of equality that we are striving for. So, it is important that individual agency, or to say individuality, should be given to women when we talk about such provisions. Then thus definitely we can say that many laws protect and they promote patriarchal attitudes. Further, another example which can be taken is for the sedition, which is under section 124A of IPC, and it says that it was in the colonial times and it was through a spirit of the colonial means. So today, many a times, this particular provision has been misused by the state against the citizens. As we know, the very famous case of Kanhaiya Kumar, he was also tried under the charges of sedition. And then recently also in the riots that were taking place, or to say the processions that were taking against the CAA, which was the Citizenship Amendment Act, many of the protesters were taken under the charge of sedition. So this also needs to be made a bit relaxed and should be put together according to the needs of today's society. Then the next point is the death penalty, because many a times it is claimed that death penalty is very much arbitrary and it is controversial to the human rights, and so it should be put down, whereas some say that no, it is the right remedy. So this also should be discussed properly. Now, if we talk about the CRPC, so the author says that what we need to do is that we need to harmonize the various provisions of CRPC with the court rulings. Now, since judicial activism is definitely a very important aspect, and judiciary has also played a very important role in keeping the laws and legal provisions live in context of today's society, and thus the provisions of the CRPC, which were also drafted long back ago, should keep in pace with the need of today's society. Then it says that despite of the court rulings which were inserted as safeguards, the procedures which are under the CRPC are often weaponized against the citizens. So that definitely should not happen. Now, with this, we are done with the detailed analysis of today's articles, and we are again very delighted to inform and announce that from now, we are venturing into this new column called as News in Flash, wherein we will be discussing the important and crisp news, which will either contain the facts which can be quoted in the mains answer, or also the facts which are important for a daily news follower as well. And secondly, it will be talking specifically about the news which are important from our prelims point of view, or from our from our multiple choice questions point of view. So to begin with, the first one is, on 6th July 2020, Tibetan spiritual leader Dalai Lama celebrated his 85th birth anniversary. So Dalai Lama actually simply, these are the spiritual gurus or the spiritual monks or the spiritual heads to say, who belong to the Gelung school, and they are the newest school of Tibetan Buddhism. So currently we have the 14th Dalai Lama, and recently his 85th birthday has been celebrated. So China actually considers the Tibetan spiritual leader, that is the Dalai Lama, as a separatist figure, as they believe, China believes him to be seeking independence for Tibet. So since China also claims, puts its claims on Tibet, so China believes that Dalai Lama is a kind of a separatist who actually is yearning for separating the Tibet from China and yearning for its own independence. So, now recently, a new video message for his followers in Taiwan he has showed an interest in visiting Chinese claim Taiwan again, and he has not visited the democratic island after 2009. Secondly, 29th June is observed as a National Statistics Day. So this again is important for us from a prelims point of view, and for our basic statistical, or to say basic factual information as well. So it is celebrated to commemorate the birth anniversary of Professor P.C. Mahalonobis, about whom we discussed in detail today. So the theme for this year is the Sustainable Development Goal 3. So as we know that there are a few Sustainable Development Goals, and the third one from them is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. And the SDG number 5, which is about to achieve gender equality and improve all women and to empower all women and girls. And thirdly, a rare disease called Kawasaki disease. So the name of this disease should be kept in mind. So it has been seen in the children who are mostly affected or who are mostly the victims of COVID-19. So it is named after a Japanese pediatrician whose name is Tomisaku Kawasaki. So this name also can be asked in the news. And actually, it was him who first reported this case, a case of this disease in 1961. So for our better knowledge, the symptoms of this disease are high fever, rashes, and a swollen tongue. So actually, the swollen tongue has been analogized with a strawberry tongue because it almost looks like a strawberry. So that is why it is also commonly known as the strawberry tongue. So with this, we have come to the end of today's session. And here is an MCQ question for you all. Which of the following is not a greenhouse gas? Methane, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, or nitrous oxide? And also, as we discussed yesterday also, now we will be also giving a model descriptive question from the news article itself. So the question for today is, various laws and provisions in the Indian Penal Code as we see them today are outdated and need to be revised to keep a pace with the changing social order. Elucidate. So since we have discussed this entire concept in very much detail today, so we hope that it would be a good experience for you writing all the answer to this. Also, we would encourage all the viewers to put up their answers in the comment section, and if we see a good participation from our viewers, then we would definitely try to review these answers as well. And even before that, a peer review can be done wherein the commenters or the answer writers can themselves view the answers written by others and gain through the new points written in their answers. With this, we'll be ending today's session. We hope it was a good session for you all. Thank you so much.